Hey guys, Jared Kraus, and do you want to know how to become a professional at buying websites? Well, I just spoke to the director of sales at Empire Flippers, Mr. Alex Champagne, and he tells me they've sold over $70 million worth of websites. And in this podcast episode, we dive into understanding what are the best websites for you to buy, depending on where you're at in your journey, what skills that you already have or may not have, and what hobbies that you already have and may not have as well. We'll also talk about the most common websites that people buy when they're beginners and what the risks are involved with those websites, how to avoid those risks and minimize those risks and buy those websites anyway, and then how to grow them on top of that purchase. We also dive into structuring a deal. How can you finance a deal and how do you pay for a website that you're wanting to buy? And then we talk about how to negotiate to ensure that you can get the best deal possible and get your offer across the line and it works out as a successful transaction. Now, my favorite thing about this whole episode with Alex was learning and understanding how valuable relationships are, because the most valuable thing out of buying a website is the relationships that you actually build. So if you're wanting to buy a website and do it right, minimize all your risks and come away with a successful transaction, this is one of the most powerful podcast episodes. And I know this because it went over time it went longer than we normally do, but I had to allow that to happen because there was so much value in it. So go away, listen to the podcast and enjoy. Hey guys, and welcome back to the Buying Online Businesses podcast. This is Jared and I'm with Mr. Alex Champagne from Empire Flippers. Alex, welcome to the show and thank you so much for coming on board.
Thanks for having me, Jared. I'm excited to be here.
Now, Alex, you're from Empire Flippers and Empire Flippers has had some massive growth. One of the biggest website brokers now online, and you guys over at Empire Flippers have many accolades, right? You've gone away and you've sold over $70 million worth of listings in a short period of time. You've gotten business brokerage awards and the team that you've scaled in this short amount of years is phenomenal. And I've really watched the growth of you guys through these last few years as I've been buying websites and teaching people as well. Now, Greg, you're director of sales here at Empire Flippers. So how did you get into that role? If you have a 1 to 2 minute sort of bring us up to speed on how you came to Empire Flippers in this sort of industry.
Yeah, sure. So like most people, I started a web design and marketing company as my first kind of foray into online business. That quickly evolved into a conversion rate optimization company. That was about 6 or 7 years ago. And we basically got really good at just converting or increasing the revenue share of people once they get to your site or your app or whatever it may be. So from there, I got to work with a lot of cool entrepreneurs and ended up getting to work on a lot of different business models that we sell. So I started an FBA business in the supplement space in around 2014. I ended up exiting that to my partner at the time because I thought the market was too saturated. Looking back now, that was a really big mistake, but you live and you learn. And then from there, I got to work on a lot of different things like some pretty large mailing lists for info products and educational courses. I worked with Mixergy, who's a pretty awesome interview series as well. And then that kind of just evolved into me wanting to learn what it really takes to grow a big business like you were talking about from the startup level. I saw that Empire Flippers was hiring and reached out. And about 10 days later, I was in the middle of Thailand kind of kicking it off. So that's how I got to Empire Flippers.
Yeah, cool. And everybody's quite international within that company. Spoken to a lot of you guys all over the world. So awesome. And so today we're going to be talking about, how to negotiate and structure deals because you're the director of sales. You see so many sales happen within the company and there's so much that you've learned from, you guys just created a report of the $70 million worth of sales that you guys have made. And for anybody listening, that report was with Greg. It's a previous episode. I think it's 2 episodes ago. So go back and listen to that and we dive deep into that. In this particular episode, I want to talk about you see a lot of new buyers coming to buying websites, right? So Alex, what are the particular business models that new buyers sort of lean towards and why is that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, to kind of answer the initial part there, like what buyers lean towards. A lot of times when we have new buyers come in, they're hot on things like SaaS or e-commerce. And we kind of have a very blunt conversation with these guys early on. If you don't have a lot of online business experience, software as a service businesses in general are going to be pretty complicated and might make you feel overwhelmed if they don't come with an entire team. So instead, what we like to have them focus on are some of the simpler models, some of the more pure kind of online businesses like an affiliate website or an Amazon FBA, which is fulfillment by Amazon. So those are two great models that we see a lot of our buyers that are new go into and see a lot of success with. So
yeah, for everybody listening, SaaS is software as a service. And software is, and this is something that I really liked it because they're membership models, right? Most of them are membership models anyway, Alex. And I like it because the membership model is really cool and getting an ongoing revenue or income stream monthly. But it for me, when I first started, it was a scary thing because I knew nothing about software. I knew nothing about coding.
Absolutely.
And I think it's a big hurdle to overcome for a first listing. So with those, usually you've got affiliate and FBA type businesses. Mm-hmm. Talk to me more like what type of affiliate businesses are people wanting to buy? Are they, as first timers, are they looking for these Amazon associate sites, or are they going for, ones that have different commission junction or different ClickBank type of affiliate programs linked to them, or is it a mixture?
Yeah, I would say it is a mixture. So like you mentioned, and I'm sure you discussed with Greg, we do a lot of volume. So we have a lot of experience across multiple different monetization methods, even within the affiliate niche or the affiliate space. But I would say Amazon Associates is by far kind of the leader there. If we're putting percentages around it, it's going to be the one that's north of 50, 60% of our portfolio of sales and affiliates. And then it's going to kind of be broken up from there with some of the alternate ones like you were talking about. So Commission Junction, ClickBank, those kind of partners are also going to make up some of the sites. But I think what new buyers really like about Amazon Associates, and just so everyone knows here, Amazon Associates is basically the program that pays you to refer traffic over to Amazon, and you get a piece of whatever's purchased from there within 24 hours. So a very relatable example that I always say is anytime I go to make a major purchase decision, I'll always type in something like best coffee pot 2019. I can almost guarantee if you search that into Google, the top 3 to 5 sites have affiliate links pointing to Amazon, and we'll get paid a percentage of it when you purchase that coffee pot. So it's a really good model. People understand the concept. They get what they're buying, and they understand the value that they're adding. And then once we kind of get to that point, it really just is all about what their goals are. So we can talk a little bit about what makes a good fit for the specific buyer. But to answer your question on a more broader level, I would say, yeah, Amazon Associates is kind of the easier affiliate model to get into.
Yeah. So it's just Amazon Associates is their affiliate program, really. And exactly. Amazon's just such a monopoly that they do make things a lot easier for people. And you can see why they got a massive market share in that. So, yeah, you said we could talk about deeper, the different types of businesses for different profiles. I know this, you guys have like Lifestyle Larry and Newbie Norm, and that was a really cool thing for me to relate to when I was buying websites in the particular place of where I was at in my journey. So talk to me about the different types of website businesses that are coming up for sale, are being sold, and who they're best tailored to. So everybody listening is like, oh, I'm that type of personality that wants a business that will be, what's the best one for me?
Absolutely. So like you said, we do have those buyer personas that are on our website that make it easy and kind of memorable. But I would say from just to make it even more simple, typically there's only a few broad types of buyers. The first one is someone who's looking to, maybe they've been in corporate America, they've raised up some capital, and they're looking to invest that as an alternate income stream and still keep their job. They're kind of testing the waters. Maybe they have $50,000 or something like that they're looking to deploy, and they're looking to get some cash back each month. So that type of buyer is very typical. It's someone who's wanting to learn as they go and maybe see where this takes them. In that scenario, I always suggest that you go for ease of operation over the potential optimization of revenue with going with a more complicated channel. So something like ClickBank may pay you 20% of the sale, depending on the product, whereas Amazon might only pay you 5%. And at first glance, a buyer is going to look at this and go like, well, I should definitely go with the one with the higher profit margins. But there's a reason for that. And it's because, one, you're going to be competing with probably more savvy internet marketers that are going for those higher percentage sales. And then the other thing is it's just a more complicated program of how you're going to actually fulfill it and make it happen. Amazon makes it so simple, like you said. That's why they're successful on the actual commercial side. They make it so easy to buy. They make it really easy for you to send them traffic and get more people to buy products from them. So I would say that's a very typical type of buyer persona. And then the other one is one who's really looking for growth. Maybe they have some internet marketing chops, whether it's from their current job or they've been working on side projects. Maybe they've built a couple sites up on their own and they've kind of built some of the skills it takes to run, like we're talking about with an affiliate site, some search engine optimization, create some content and kind of scale these sites up. Then those guys might look for something that's a little more complex. Maybe it has multiple different affiliate partners. So maybe Amazon makes up 60% of its revenue, Commission Junction 30%, and maybe has a private affiliate offer for like 10%. So that's something that's going to take you more time, but you do have a higher upside potential with that because you already have that diverse revenue built in. So typically when we have guys who are a little bit more savvy, they might look at a more advanced site. The big thing I always say though is you're not only buying a business, a website or an asset, you're also buying a relationship with the seller. And this is super critical for new buyers. So when you are looking at these websites, make sure you talk with the seller and get an understanding that they're going to be able to help you out. I mean, is that something you kind of talk about, Jared, when you're trying to find a business?
It's such a big thing, and I'm really glad that you brought that up, Alex, is that when you do go to buy a website, you know, there's so many people out there that are wanting to buy that same sort of site, especially on your marketplace. You've got a lot of people and you do want to become an attractive buyer. And how you do that is you need to get really good at building a relationship with sellers. And, you know, any sort of skills in building any relationship really helps. But it's not just important to do that to ensure that you come across and get the purchase of that business, but the ongoing of the business as well. Like once you have bought a business, you get a certain amount of time frame that you speak to you speak to the seller, you come to an agreement. Maybe it's 3, Skype calls or whatever it is, or 3 hours of training. But if you can create a really good relationship with the seller, then you can be in contact with them for far longer than just that short period of 3 hours. And that's the biggest advantage that I have and try to teach people when they're buying a site, is that really work on that relationship and don't just be like asking and just like expecting information from them at the drop of a hat. Be nice, really build that relationship. And from that, there's so many great things can come from every relationship if you build it, is that, maybe you bought a business from them then, initially, and maybe they build another one, they sell you another one. Or maybe they go, oh, hey, see that you're getting into this space. Maybe we want to do a JV and build another business together in the same sort of industry that can help this one grow that you've just bought from me. And then we sell them both as a package or something. And, there's so many opportunities come from the relationship that you build. And I feel that that's probably the most important part of the transaction, is having that relationship with that person. Yes, you're going to get a great investment and you're going to make money, but that relationship in itself, and even if you don't make money from that relationship, great, but you're going to learn a lot from them and they can learn a lot from you too.
Yeah. I mean, you touched on some really critical things there. I think one thing you mentioned is when you do hit the wall, because it's probably going to happen with whatever business you buy, you're going to hit a point where you don't know what to do. And it might be 6 months down the line. So having those open lines of communication with the seller so they can just step in and say, oh, it's really easy, this is all you got to do, is going to save you a ton of time and headache. And that kind of goes back to something that also doesn't feel, or maybe it feels counterintuitive. And that's that when you are negotiating, especially when you are looking to acquire a site or a business, keep in mind that there's a human on the other end of these negotiations. Because while you may save 2 months multiple from like hardballing the seller, you might tick him off so much that he still does the deal, he goes through it, but he's much less likely to facilitate and work through it. So anytime you're negotiating, just treat the other side as a human, like you would want to be treated. And it's going to result in just a much better transaction and a much better relationship post sale. So can't agree more. It's huge.
Yeah. And that's what we come back to is the win-win. So everybody should win, including the broker. The broker gets what they need out of it, which is you guys, which is huge because that relation, and we may be discounting a relationship here as well, Alex, is that sometimes people don't realize that you can destroy a relationship with the broker and they're just like, poof, this person's just trying to hardball every single business I give them. They're not somebody we want to deal with. And they could contact you, and that could be me, right? It could be me like, Alex, give me a business, man. I want to buy one. And I just give you a super lowball offer and everything. And I'm just a dick to deal with and expecting. And then you got all these other people that are like, mate, I'm not going to send you information or businesses when there's other people that are way better to deal with than you. So there's that relationship that you got to uphold. And so every single person in this transaction needs to have a win out of it. And if you can win in building a great relationship with the broker and then with the seller as well, then, maybe you could reach out to the broker in, a month's time or 2 months' time is was this supposed to happen in the transaction? They could give you a little bit of advice. It's such a small thing for them to do, but it's going to help you massively on your end. And the same way further down the track, you're going to win from getting more tailored information from the seller 6 months down the road too. So big. And when I first came to this whole scene of buying websites, Alex, I was a plumber and I knew nothing.
Okay. Wow.
I knew nothing. And I started blogging before and I learned a little bit about how to grow blogs and write articles, and that was it. So I taught myself how to do a little bit of content marketing. Now, for somebody who's first starting out, they may be like me, they may know nothing. What do you suggest what sort of business they should go for? And because I learned a lot from, and regardless if you've got experience or not, your first business, you're going to learn a lot from. What would you say is a great business to move into where you can start to learn skills without having to put too much at risk because you don't have all the knowledge?
Yeah, sure. So, and I think that's really where the conversation has to begin, is knowing your risk tolerance and being honest with yourself. So a lot of times what we'll see with first-time buyers is they'll say, I have $200,000, I'm looking to buy a business. And the reality is they do have $200,000 in cash, but they're really comfortable with putting, let's say, $100,000 of that into a business. So be honest with yourself. What are you looking to put into a business? And then once you've established that revenue or that acquisition target price, then it kind of lets you narrow down and look what kind of businesses are in that category. And I think it comes back to, like we were talking about, an affiliate site, and then the other option there. And usually people are either very into one or the other. Sometimes when people grow there, they get into both, but the other one's physical product. So selling an actual product, and where we see newer buyers have success and again, can kind of wrap their head around, not to keep blowing Amazon's horn or tooting their horn, is the fulfillment by Amazon model. So that's actual products that you own the production of, you send to Amazon. Amazon handles basically everything from there, with shipping it out to your customer, actually having it on their website and actually processing the sale. And then you get revenue from those sales. So that's known as Amazon FBA. And it can be a very good business to get started in, because like you were talking about, it teaches you a lot of the same things in a smaller, more comfortable ecosystem. So if you're running an e-commerce business, let's say outside of Amazon, you're going to have to know a lot of different skills that are still applicable in Amazon. They're just easier in Amazon. So things like your pay-per-click traffic, those kind of paid traffic plays are much more difficult to run outside of Amazon. Amazon has a very simple system. If I spend $2, it results in this much profit for my product. It makes it very simple to see how the funnel goes. And the same kind of thing with product listing optimization. So you can spend so much time and money optimizing your website to improve the conversion rates through increasing and improving pictures, improving the buttons that you use to check out, the text color, yada, yada, yada. You can do the same kind of thing with optimizing your listing on Amazon, but again, it's in a smaller framework and it's more simple. And you can see if I do this, it has this result a lot more quickly. And that's the kind of skills you want to learn. And then on top of that, this is a huge one that I would say most people don't understand, and it's how to buy right. So you're going to be buying typically from either a supplier who's in China or India or maybe America, wherever it may be. You're going to have to learn how to have a relationship with the supplier and negotiate terms. And that's something you can learn from the seller, but that's something you can leverage into every part of your career. Because let's say you do buy an affiliate site later, use that exact same type of negotiation to get an additional increase on your percentage or whatever it may be. So you're learning how to make relationships, you're learning how to put capital at risk smartly, and you're going to pick a lot of that knowledge up from the seller and kind of have a huge head start on if you were just to start one of these businesses.
Yeah, coming back to those relationships is so profound how deep we can go with just relationships. I have a business where when it was my second business I bought, there was a relationship that I needed to build with the VAs. And then there was a relationship I needed to build with suppliers as well from a foreign country. And it was new to me because I hadn't really done that. And by doing that and getting good at it, it's allowed me so many more skills in buying other businesses and talking to other people in other countries. So it's a huge value add. And let's go back to the FBA model. Like this is a topic was like, should I buy a drop shipping business or should I buy an FBA business? Now, the drop shipping business model is where, yes, you can earn your money back quicker. And the reason being is because you're selling products retail on your site. This wholesaler or supplier will, charge you wholesale for them and send them out to the customer for you. You make your profit margin. You don't have to buy massive inventory and stock it and hold it. With FBA, you do need to buy inventory and you do need to pay for it being stocked in Amazon. And the difference is that you don't make your money back as quick, but the risk is a little bit less if you don't have those marketing skills, because you can pay some money to Amazon to help you market it rather than what you're talking about before is optimizing your site so you make better sales with different button options and different things on your site, which is called conversion rate optimization for people listening to this. And so if I don't know anything about marketing, like when I first started, I had no idea about marketing.
Sure.
And FBA didn't even exist when I first started buying websites. And so I had to quickly teach myself how to do it because that's what I needed to do to grow my drop shipping businesses. Now you have that advantage of buying an FBA business and just putting money in and they'll help you. But I dare say, would you feel that it's a great value add to a website, an Amazon business to create a website off the back of it and start drop shipping or start selling those products outside of Amazon?
Absolutely.
Have you seen that happen? Because that's something that I haven't heard anybody talk about, and I want to touch on it.
Yeah, that's a great point. So to kind of take a step back here, in order to be brand registered on Amazon, and that's a term basically that means that you can protect your brand and take down people who are trying to compete with you in Amazon on your specific brand, you need your own website. So that's a big part of brand registry. So a lot of our sites will have, depending on the size, some sort of a website outside of Amazon. And then as these companies grow, typically they start trying to diversify resources more into their own website. So they'll build a Shopify store and maybe they start getting 10 to 20% of their sales revenue from their Shopify store. And usually it's from like repeat buyers. So if you have something like supplements, for example, it's something people buy every 2 months. They buy the initial round off of Amazon and then they start thinking, I'm just going to look this up. They go to your website. Maybe you have it priced more affordably. because you're not having to pay Amazon fees there. You didn't have to really do a lot of marketing to get them in, so you have a better margin if they go directly through your website. So we'll see stuff like that for sure. But to go back a little bit even further on the drop shipping side, I think you make a good point. Like, you can learn a lot from running a drop shipping website, and you can do it successfully even as a newer buyer, because you do have a lower risk threshold with the inventory. The big thing is you're just going to have to be more flexible, and you're going to have to learn how to pivot more quickly, usually, because you are relying on someone else's products 99% of the time when you're drop shipping, right? So you're going to be drop shipping, like, for example, like a bike. Maybe you're doing some sort of specific bike. You're going to be selling major brands like Schwinn and Trek, and you're building kind of a persona around that. One of the most famous ones that people drop ship, or like clothing accessories. Those can be difficult because you have to go with different styles. You have to move. So if you're a new buyer, what I would like you to consider when you're considering a drop shipping business is really think about, do you understand your target audience for this product? Is it going to change a lot? So like electronics, apparel, those require a tight pulse to the market because they change with seasons, they change year in, year out with electronics. So you're gonna have to change your inventory, change your marketing a lot more often if you run that sort of a drop shipping business. So if that is the model you choose to go to, and I think you'd agree with this, Jared, just make sure you know where you're putting your money. And that always kind of comes back to being a good idea, but it's especially true with drop shipping.
Yeah, those are great, two industries to pick up on. Is technology is so ever changing, and then so is apparel. But with that, they're very accessible as well, which means it's a lot of people can start these website businesses and easily become competition, or there's already so much competition out there. And I personally like to stay away from technology and apparel just because it's a lot of work. Like, people, if you're coming to buy a website and you want a long-term strategy to make money, then stick with something that's not going to be too much work. But if you're coming to buy sites to make a quick amount of money really quickly and build something up, flip it, or whatever it is you want to do, then maybe apparel and technology is a viable option. But such a big thing to consider, I feel, when moving forward to that. So how would you determine what sort of business, like, there's so many different business models. And I have a way that I like to coin what's the best business model for the type of person you are. And whether that's a drop shipping, FBA, SaaS and membership site, all those particular type ones that are most popular. I like to tell people that, stick to what you know. And if you know a little bit about drop shipping or FBA or anything, then great. Now, if you're new and you come to the whole market like me and not knowing a thing, straight off the tools, and you don't know anything, I like to tell people that it's, you got nothing that so you can't stick to what you know. But if there's, out of all those business models that you do see, stick to the one that you understand the most. But what would you determine, like, how people should find what a good fit, like, business model is for them?
Absolutely. So I think you're dead on that it always begins with a skill analysis. So look at what you know and what you can bring to the table, and be creative about how that can relate to the business. So, in the instance with a plumber, I don't know your specific scenario, but typically that means, you're someone that's good at solving problems. You probably had to do your own kind of relationship selling, I'd imagine, at times. So you're kind of used to being an entrepreneur. You're used to having conversations with people. That makes some of the more complicated products seem less daunting, right? So ones where you're trying to deliver like an actual communication process or a sales process to deliver a product, like an info course. Like you're an expert at plumbing or something like that. So maybe if you come across something that helps you solve some sort of a home goods or a home repair type of site, you're going to have natural affinity towards that, like you were saying, and you'll be able to see if the content is good or not. I mean, that's big. Like some niches are so obscure that if a buyer comes to it with no knowledge, you can read 1,000 words and really have no clue whether or not it's true or if it's like actually good content, because it's so out of your realm of like know-how.
Understanding.
So I think
yeah.
exactly. So that's the first step. Do that skill analysis. Once you've kind of narrowed down what you think you can bring to the table, and it's usually a lot more than you think, because even if you are, something that's not typically viewed for having such and such skill, like you said, you started writing a blog. I know so many guys that are just incredible musicians, or they're incredible writers, and their jobs are just different skills. So your hobbies, you can bring that to it as well. Maybe you're technical, bring that to the table. But once you've kind of narrowed that down, again, have that tough budget conversation and be honest and open with your broker. Like you got to give him something to work within, so he's not just showing you a wide range, and so that he can narrow it down. Because what you're looking to do here is get to as many no's as possible so that you can get to a yes. Like your goal, and this sounds weird coming from a broker, your goal should be to basically tell me no as much as you can. Because the faster we can get to no, it's the faster that we can clear a bad fit off the table. And that's not to say that when you do say no, we're not going to ask like why and kind of dig in, because that sometimes exposes what, it's not actually a real no, it's just a confusion point. That's different. But if you've gotten to the point where this isn't a good fit, it's too expensive, I don't like how this is done, it's not a good fit for me, let's move on and let's look at another business. Because usually you're going to have a synergy with the seller, you're going to have a synergy with the product, or at least like the revenue model, and it's going to make the decision a lot easier. And then from there, just to quickly kind of summarize, know the type of business that you want to have. Do you want to spend 40 hours a week on this business, or do you want to spend 5 hours a week? Be very honest with yourself on how much time you can commit. One mistake we will see is a guy says, I want to spend more time. He's like, yeah, I work full time, I'm a lawyer, I have a ton of cash, but I'm going to put 40 hours in and I'm going to replace my income in a year. That's unrealistic. Like, you're not going to do that. So if you're not going to quit your job, don't buy a business that requires the seller 40 hours a week, because it's probably going to require more of you. So keep that in mind. If you are trying to buy a career replacement, that's totally fine, but know what you're going after. And then from there, it's really just about narrowing down the deal and getting into a proportion that makes sense for everyone involved.
Yeah, awesome.
Does that help?
Yeah, that's gold. Absolutely gold. I love it. And thank you, especially, bringing in your hobbies and other skills or hobbies that can be transferable into different niches just because you understand a little bit of the language is really powerful. But what I picked up on is that, and this is something that I look for when I'm buying businesses, like how much time does it take me to run those businesses? And it can take 3 hours, per week or per month, and it can be 30 hours. But some people, and I know some of my clients, they get scared off when they're like, oh, it's like 20 hours a week. Like 10 hours a week, I can't do that. Now, what I like to share with them is like, yes, it may be that, but maybe you could have a VA come along with it and they could do that work. And if a VA doesn't come along with it, maybe you hire a VA at the same time you buy the business and they go through the same training with you as you do with the actual seller, and they learn how to run that part of the business for you. So I feel that's a really important thing to touch on as well. Now, you see so many deals happen. I want to talk about structuring deals. What's the most common way? And I like the seller financing and the earn-out type model in structuring a deal. So we'll talk about structuring and then negotiation, but what do you see is a common way to structure deals on, say, businesses under the 50K and then businesses over the 50K to mil and whatever it is? Like, what are those? Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely different depending on the pricing tier. So under $50,000, it's very rare for a deal to have structure. So it's usually going to be cash, especially if the business has a lot of interest. As you may know, but for you guys who don't know Empire Flippers, we sell sub $80,000, sub $100,000 sites literally in minutes. So they'll go live Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern, and then we'll have a wire hit our account 8 minutes after for list price, and it'll go to a buyer. Sometimes we'll have multiple wires for the same business. So it can be very competitive on those lower listings, especially under $50,000. That doesn't mean that it doesn't happen, but that does mean that the competition is so much higher at that level that typically a seller understands that he doesn't need to provide seller financing in order to make a deal work. He's going to be more cash heavy. And when you do have seller financing at that level, it's typically going to be shorter. So let me just explain seller financing from a broad perspective.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah, usually like let's use $100,000 just because it's an easy number. So you go to buy a $100,000 business. Let's say you put $80,000 up front, and then the remaining $20,000 of the purchase will be paid out in $2,000 increments for 10 months. That's a very like basic standard earn-out or seller financing scenario. Then if you're wanting to kind of evolve that and get a little more sophisticated, you can start doing things like performance-based earn-out. So using that same example, we're going for a $100,000 business. We're still going to put $80,000 up front just to keep it clean. But that remaining $20,000 will be tied to some sort of a revenue target. So if the business earns $5,000, the seller gets paid, let's say $1,000. If it earns $10,000, the seller gets paid $3,000. And then you just set a window around how long this is going to go on for, or a max amount of money that gets paid back. And that's a performance-based earn-out seller financing scenario. That's popular, but again, that just depends on the level of comfort or confidence that the seller has in you, the level of confidence that you have in your negotiation skills to kind of work that through. I would say the majority of deals are going to be straight earnouts or straight seller financing, where it's just a fixed amount paid back over a certain amount of time. And then maybe, 30 to 40% are around seller financing that has some sort of contingency depending on the performance of the business. As you get bigger and bigger, the deals get more complex. Things like a seller note that might have interest attached to it, depending on the size of the business and the payback period. Maybe there's like a 5% interest payment that gets applied to the monthly payments. Sometimes it'll be that inventory gets paid out as the units sell. So if a business is a $5 million business, it might have $1 million worth of inventory at any given time. And so the buyer might need some time to kind of cash flow that. So the seller will basically give them an opportunity to sell the inventory and pay them back the fixed cost of the inventory as it sells. And I'm just kind of running through some of them here. Yeah, and I would say the only other thing we haven't really covered is some sort of like an equity percentage play. So maybe you buy 80% of the asset and the seller remains 20% owner. And usually that isn't like an LLC or a corporate share sale. Typically what that looks like is it's you get 80% of the revenue, the seller gets 20% of the revenue, and then you have a fixed time frame where you can usually buy the seller out at that time based on a new valuation or something like that. So anything north of, let's say, $200,000 becomes a lot more open to seller financing, we've seen. And it really just depends on the business. Some sellers don't want to do seller financing no matter what. I will say that since we've kind of thought through this process, we've sold so many deals, we've made a lot of iterations to our process to help protect both sides. So let's say we were selling a $500,000 website. The seller might be like, well, how do I know he's going to pay me back, right? I'm accepting $300,000 up front, and it's going to take 10 months to get the additional $200,000. How do I know he's not just going to walk away with the site?
Yeah.
So one of the things we do to protect sellers is we actually hold on to the domain, and we actually manage the earnout for them. So the buyer will pay us, and then we pay the seller. And then once that gets finalized, everything goes through and everything's good, we'll then release the domain or whatever assets we're holding to the buyer, so that both sides can be treated and kept whole in that scenario. And that just kind of makes sure that both people, like you talk about, have a win-win-win scenario. So I know there's kind of a word vomit there, but
Right.
Hopefully some of that was helpful.
That's great. I've actually done that with you guys. One of the listings I bought from you guys is you guys I did an earnout and paid it off over, it may have been 10 months. It may have been shorter, but you guys held on to the domain for a certain period of time until it was all paid off. and then I got the rest of the assets. And that's a really important thing because, you know, a 500K business is normally the domain is worth, you know, tens of thousands of dollars, maybe more. So it's really good to hold on to that. And, you know, to try and operate under a new domain as a business, if, you know, for some stupid reason that somebody was enough of a clown to run away with the business,
Sure.
I'm pretty sure a lot of people would find out about it, and they wouldn't be, you know, if they're operating that way in a deal, then the way they operate with their customers is going to be the same, and their business is going to go nowhere. So, but we still need to have that protection, which is important. And so that's structuring deals. Now, what are some of the most effective negotiations you've seen between sellers and buyers in different deals? Because I know that, you know, you could have people that come in a low ball and they try to creep their way up, which is probably the typical scenario that most people would do, I could imagine. And then the seller will start to come down to you, meet in the middle. But have you seen anything that's like sort of out of the ordinary that would just worked really seamlessly and was really well done?
So for sure. So you mentioned one thing there, kind of meeting in the middle. That is a very typical negotiation tactic. It's what people use to buy cars. It's what people use to buy houses in markets that aren't, you know, oversaturated. There's a book called Never Split the Difference by a guy named Chris Voss. He is a former FBI negotiator, and now he teaches business negotiation tactics under a company called Black Swan. That's required reading for us whenever you come onto the sales team. So we have 2 books that we require, and that's one of the ones that we require guys to read before they come onto the team. And that's not to say that we never use that method of splitting the difference, because once you get to a certain point where everything else is kind of hashed out, it can be helpful just to have both sides become agreeable. But I would suggest, especially if you're operating from a marketplace that values business fairly, being the guy that always throws out the 40% low ball, hoping to get to 80% or something like that, never works, especially if there's multiple people engaged. That situation works when there's just like one person that wants to buy a business and the seller feels very much like this is their only option. So maybe they'll entertain this and kind of go back and forth.
Off market type deal.
Yeah, exactly. So for tactics that work, I mean, it really is so situationally dependent. What I will say is, and this is true for both sides, is know the number that makes sense for you and stick to it. So what's really difficult to see is when a seller feels like kind of the, I'll just use the analogy that our CEO used, like the hottest girl at the bar. She just feels like no guy's going to be good enough because obviously she's the prettiest person here, and she's just going to keep saying no until the Prince Charming comes to the door and kind of sweeps her off her feet. The reality is you are looking for the right deal, but you need to have clear set expectations. So this analogy breaks down, but let's say like you have a $1 million business for the list price, but you're willing to walk away for $900,000. If someone comes out of the gate and offers you $900,000, don't move your goal. So we'll see that happen, and people will get kind of like wrapped up. This is their baby they're selling. They put so much blood, sweat, and tears into it. And then they just start feeling like, oh man, I'm severely undervalued. These Empire Flippers guys don't know what they're doing. And this really doesn't happen often. I'm just trying to give you an example of what to be aware of. When that happens, that can be a real negative for the buyer, because a lot of our buyers will lead with their best offer. And they'll just say like, look, I've ran all the numbers. This makes sense for me at this price based on how we acquire businesses and how it's going to work within our kind of operational machine. Is this something that'll work for you? And then they may have very little margin one way or the other on how they structure it. But they come with their best offer to the table, and people just try to work from there. And I would say if this is something that you're serious about, just talk with the seller. Ask them what's most important to them. Not enough people do that. Just literally say like, what are you trying to get more money up front, or are you trying to get more money over time? What's the most important thing you hear? And the seller is going to tell you, and then just do your best to try to come to a deal that helps there. And explain to them like, here's my situation. I'm perfectly fine with paying a premium for your business, but I need 8 months to do it. Like if you have those type of honest conversations, that's what's going to lead to effective negotiation. You can't just try to like slime your way through it. It just doesn't work. And if it does work, it'll work once. And then everyone's like, I'm not going to work with that guy. So it's just going to be a horrible situation. Like you were talking about, if it happens where the buyer pulls it off, the seller is going to be very unmotivated to provide any additional support on that type of a purchase.
And it's not the way to come in to do that, and with all the relationships that you can destroy in that. And that's so good to hear you say, you know, that main question, this is the exact same question that I get all of my clients to ask, and it puts you straight away in a position of a professional investor or website investor. Is that, like, what's more important to you? Like, would you rather get your money cash straight up and get it done? If so, you know, like what are you looking at? Or would you rather get, you know, more and get it over time? And that's a huge thing that puts you straight into a professional investor standpoint. And then one thing that I know that I've learned in negotiation and offering deals, and I've learned this from being in property, is that like sellers, they may be like what you said, at $1 million, like they want to sell it for $1 million, but their worst case is like 900. And then somebody comes in and goes, all right, I've done a lot of research. I've done a lot of due diligence. I'm going to give you my best offer. And often if I do that, I'm going to give one offer.
Yep.
I'm going to give one offer for a real estate transaction or a website. And if that person says no, then I don't proceed, because it's the best offer that I can give them. It's like the best offer that I can give them. And that's my biggest advice to anybody, is like, give one offer. And it's like you say, stick with it. It's the best one. And what I've learned is that for sellers that are selling a business, often the first offer you get is the best offer.
Yeah.
And walking away from it thinking, I can get more money is something you really need to think hard about and take yourself outside of the emotions there, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great to hear someone say that that's not a broker, because we try to coach our sellers through that, and naturally so, you know, they're going to feel that we're incentivized to just move this as quickly as possible. But the reality is, you get a lot of interest on the first week that your listing goes live. And a lot of times buyers see this, they're like, oh, this is perfect, I'm moving. They do all their research and they present that offer like you're talking about, and it may not be exactly what you thought it was going to be. But if this, you know, and this happens with some of our institutional buyers, they are exactly like you were talking about. They will talk with the guy, they will negotiate, but usually it's very marginal, it's on terms. But if they can't come to an agreement, they won't come back for months, and they're going to come back and ask for way less, because they know if it's still on the market, there's a good chance that someone just hasn't found it. And that's not always the case, but savvy buyers know this, and they tell sellers that, and they're not lying. Their time is valuable. They know what they're doing, and it's a very savvy negotiating move. Yeah.
The longer a listing stays on the market, the least valuable it becomes, because you look more and more desperate to sell it. And that's something that every seller should know. And it's also good for a buyer to know as well, because you're like, well, this person has been offered some pretty cool things. Now they really want to sell it, and they're getting to a position like where they're going to have to take less, lower than the 950 that may have been offered, because they got emotional going, I'm going to get more than this because this is only the first week. Yeah. Well, you want to sell like the least amount of time that your listing is on the market is, you know, the better, because it's just,
One thing I would say to that, and we have cases where businesses stay on the market because the seller is like, I'm only taking list and I'm only taking cash, and we've priced it to reflect the fact that it is an outlier business. You really need to know your business. Like if you have an exceptional business, it's growing month over month, and we're continuing to revalue it. It is very possible that it takes us 7 months or 6 months to find the buyer who's willing to pay a premium and it makes sense for them. But you need to know that that's going to be the situation. And that's what we always explain to those guys is like, look, we'll be here. We totally get it. You understand why your business is an exceptional business compared to the average. So if you want to hold on, let's do that. But we want to make sure that you understand exactly the scenario that's going to happen, because it may take us a significant amount of time to find the right fit. And you need to make sure that you're continuing to run your business properly. It's continuing to grow so that it does continue to be a valuable and attractive asset. So on the whole, definitely agree with you there. It's just those outlier scenarios that sometimes can be the exception to the rule. But yeah, I agree with you there.
And so for everybody that is looking at doing structuring deals and negotiating, like when to put one offer in, you need to know how to do your research and how to do your due diligence. And you need to be a professional investor. You need to learn that sort of stuff. So that's really, really important. And I'm going to give you guys some free tools. If you guys want some free tools on how to do research and due diligence, like go to my website, click on resources and get a free website evaluator tool, get a free due diligence framework and become a professional at this so you can go in and build great relationships, know what you're doing, speak to you brokers really well, speak to the sellers really well, and come out like do this sharply, not fumbling all over the place and ruining a reputation for yourself. So Alex, I feel that we just absolutely crushed this podcast and I am so grateful that we jumped on and we had the chat and everything we covered was just super valuable. Now, where can people go away and find more about what you're doing at Empire Flippers or more about you and, you know, where should we refer them if they want to speak to you guys further?
Yeah, absolutely. To make this as easy as possible, one, you can check out empireflippers.com. But the easiest way is if you're looking to kind of talk with someone from Empire Flippers, someone from the sales team, just email sales@empireflippers.com. Let us know that you heard about us from this podcast and we'll make sure we'll treat you right.
Awesome. Thanks so much for jumping on board, Alex. And for everybody listening, thank you for jumping on and listening to this episode. If you did like this episode, please be sure to like, subscribe to the channel and share it. Now, if you did like this, please be sure to go away and leave me a review in iTunes or wherever. And let me know what you liked about it so I can be certain to bring you more of that in every single episode. So thanks again so much, Alex.
Thanks a lot, Jared. See ya.